Script.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unfiltered with Roxy, the podcast where we keep it real about life, growth, and becoming the best versions of ourselves. Today, we're diving into a topic that's close to my heart, the incredible power of nature to heal our minds, bodies, and spirits. Have you ever felt that instant sense of calm wash over you when you go outside and you're just experiencing trees and fresh air and the sun? Or for me, my favorite place, waves crashing on the beach, or simply just enjoying the sun. That's nature's healing energy at work. And I'm so excited to have a special guest with me today who's dedicated her life to helping people tap into that healing. Quanshay Henderson is a licensed master social worker. She's kind of a big deal, y'all, and the founder of Nature Heals. It's an organization all about connecting people with the transformative power of nature. Quanshay, welcome to Unfiltered.
Thank you, Roxy, for having me. It is such a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad that you're here today. So for those of you who can see me in the studio, I am sweltering in here. I seem to be going through a little flash right now. So we're just going to power through. You may hear a fan. I'm not going to promise that that's not going to come on. It might come on right now. But with that, we're going to move forward. Quanshay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes.
And what you're working on?
Sure. So again, I'm a licensed social worker. My background actually is in the field of public health, where I focused on health disparities and health promotion work. And then about 3 years ago or so, I switched over to social work to connect with the audience in a different way. And so right now I have clients that I take outdoors, and I'm interested in the intersection between health, mental health, and the outdoors. And so I'm working to seamlessly integrate all of those elements for everyone's highest healing. And it's amazing work, and I'm really excited to be here and talk more about that.
Yes. And so we actually met when you were doing outreach for your business. You have a couple of projects coming up in the fall, and you had kind of caught my eye with the image that was on your display on your table. And instantly it just made me want to go over to you, and you just intuitively knew I wanted to talk that day. I think I even cried when we were talking, but we instantly connected. And I think that just speaks to how authentic you are, and how your willingness to make people want to feel healed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Nature Heals is that's basically the goal, to heal people. And again, it's through nature. We are nature. And so for me, going back to the natural world to facilitate that healing is really important. And some of what we did that day was something called brain spotting.
Yes.
It's pretty intense. It's like a cousin of EMDR, if you're familiar with that. It's a gentler version.
Wait. Time out. Can you tell our audience, our listeners, what EMDR is? Because they may not know. What's the acronym? We're gonna insert it in for you, just because we don't know where everyone's coming in from. So I'll make sure that I have that in the show notes, if nothing else. I'm gonna write that down. So I know you just did a training.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was, I went backpacking with a group of therapists, and we were out in the wilderness of West Virginia, and we were there for 6 days and 5 nights. And what we were doing, it was pretty intense, and it was beautiful all at the same time. We were working through grief in the backcountry, and specifically being trained to work others through their grief in backcountry. And so what was really interesting about that is that while we were gaining the skills that we needed, practical skills like hanging a bear bag and how to filter water, how do you cross a stream safely without falling with all of this weight on your back.
And the slippery rocks.
I think it's those practical skills, but also just being being able to work through your own grief in the process really solidified like how much I like this work, and just like how healing, firsthand experience, how healing that all can be and was. And so having something to work through as I'm thinking about clients and the different kinds of people that I'd be working with was really powerful. It was spiritual, really, for me to be out there, have everything that I needed on my backpack, and just trust life, trust that whatever happens, it will all work itself out. And I think life is like that too, just opening yourself to the process.
Yeah. So you said you only had one backpack and you had to trust the process. You also had to trust yourself, that you had all the physical things you need, but also like mentally that you're dedicating 6 days to just focus on this.
Yeah. So speaking of the mental part,
that's a big deal.
It is. At one point, I think I'm relatively active, so the active part didn't bother me too much. It was the heights, and I didn't even they didn't tell us what kind of terrain we'd be working through too much detail. So there was a point where it was a very steep incline, and in my mind, it would have been fatal if anyone fell. So that was probably the most challenging.
Pretty real, right?
Yeah. But like I had no warning, and just like grief, right? It comes in waves. It will knock you off of your feet, and you have to figure out like how do you move through this process. And so I'm walking through this part of the path called the Devil's Backbone, and I'm watching because it's really sharp, like rocks and stones.
Wait. West Virginia, why do you have a path?
The Devil's Backbone. Look it up. It is, it was probably like the hardest, the more challenging part of the hike. But also for me, the added layer was the heights. And so like looking down and going through these really tiny, narrow spaces and trying to balance was really challenging. But I knew I had to keep going. If I stopped, there's like 6 people behind me. So then I'd hold the group up. And then
they put you in the front?
No, I was in like the middle. I started like finding things like, ooh, mushrooms. And, so I sort of ended up trailing behind. But yeah, if I stopped, I would have held them back. And then there was people up front. If I stopped, I'd lose sight of which turn they made. So I had no choice but to keep going. And it was just a really powerful reminder of like life is about, you have all these obstacles at times, mental a lot, some physical, and you just have to keep going. So that was beautiful to get on the other side of that and go like, whoa, I did that. I can do this. This is...
6 days, and you were outside the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time.
So you didn't get like a bathroom break? Because I saw a movie where the people, they got to like go to a campsite, and it's like, they trailed, but then they'd come back and they'd be able to take a shower and stuff.
The bathroom break, I actually started the first bathroom break probably 30 minutes into the hike. I had to go, so everyone stopped.
Was it nerve?
It was a little bit like, oh man, like but the thing you do is called camel up. So when you're about to backpack or hike for a long stretch of time, you want to just fill yourself with as many fluids as possible and go to the bathroom as much before you head off the trail. Now my bladder is a little more sensitive. So
they probably were looking at you like, you have to go to the bathroom now.
No, it was great though, because about 20, 30 minutes in, I'm like, I need to go to the bathroom. And I was in the front of the line at this point. And then everybody stopped, and the bathroom break was the woods. So it just like, it was real. Like as soon as we left the campsite, that's when everything began. It was do you want to turn it back. So I found a nice cozy spot and I went, and everyone turned around and like stared off into the distance, but it was great.
I can just imagine.
And like after so many times of doing that, you realize that it becomes so natural. Okay. It's so natural. And then I think 4 others ended up going at other spots when I went. Yeah. So it's just it was very rugged. Everything you just do out there. Yeah.
So question, did you grow up outside, like in somewhere where you were hiking all the time? And
that's a great
suburban area.
I grew up in South Baltimore. And very urban area. It's close to this area called Federal Hill. but the neighborhood is Sharpland Hall. And yeah, our playground was the parking lot for the most part.
And so that means you didn't have any prior help for,
no, I would dig in the dirt a lot. So intuitively, I was always drawn to it. I climbed trees a lot. And the first time I was at a beach, I was 9, which is pretty late. So
is that late? I guess it is.
To me.
Yeah.
Like, most people go and they go as babies.
Yeah.
Their parents take them.
You didn't say it. I remember my kids.
Yeah. So yeah, and I didn't have exposure to that. I was born and raised in cities. Always.
Oh wow. So I wonder how old I was when I went to the beach. I gotta look that up. Mm-hmm. But I always remember being at the beach. So. Really? But my mom is from Panama City, Panama. So it's beach all over for them, and beach and jungle. But they love the water. So I think just for her, that was probably a way to reset.
Yeah. And she transferred that to you.
Yeah, because I remember after not having a memory of where the beach is that thing for me.
Yeah.
That's crazy that this how our childhood molds us too.
Yeah. And then how you can find those elements now, like in adulthood.
Yeah.
And connect to those. Mm-hmm.
And so you're hiking, you're doing your certificate. I know you had talked a little bit about as soon as you guys left, was there anyone and I know that's kind of confidential for you guys, but was there anyone that maybe looked like they weren't gonna stay in it or they weren't as invested or wanted to bail out, but you guys had to encourage to finish? That's just me being nosy. Was there someone where you were like, I don't know if they're gonna make it, y'all, or they're from what they're saying or how they're acting?
Yeah, day one of hike 1, full day, there were a few people that carried a lot in their backpacks, and all I could think about was the Erykah Badu song. That's the lady.
You gonna hurt your back.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? But I can imagine being like, oh, I'm gonna need my little fan. Yeah. I'm gonna need my pen but I need 5 of my pens because there's different colors and different textures for when I want to write, and I have different notebooks. So I'll put all that stuff in the bag because I might need it. And I might be creative and I might be hungry. Did anyone take a lot of snacks?
Yes. There were people that had a lot of snacks, but then there were people that also had a lot of stuff. Okay. I actually had the least amount of things because I'm very, I like to pack in general, but also I feel so full with life and things. And I just think all of the things that I needed would be out there for the most part, like the stars, the sky.
And that's one thing I love about you, because I remember, and I don't know how much we want to go into it now, but just one of the photos that you showed was that you were looking and you knew what herbs were on the side of the path. And that's one of the images. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh no, this is so-and-so and this is this. And even when we had walked, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, you were like, oh yeah, if we looked a little bit, we could see different herbs and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're very resilient.
Like one of those weeds, like a dandelion, which actually has so much potent.
And it's good in salads, but...
Oh, you like them in salad.
But don't eat them if you see them out on the street because people spray.
Yeah, unless in my backyard, it's a tiny yard, but I have dandelions come up and I will grab them and put them in my salads. But I get them when they're young. The leaves are young. It's a little less bitter. But yeah, it's so potent though.
Dandelions don't last in my yard.
Oh, you pull them?
We actively kill them.
Oh, so you definitely
No, we cannot do that.
I would encourage you to look up the healing properties of dandelions.
No, I know, because it's like your heart health, decrease for stress. You can use it for tea, but it makes your yard look terrible.
Yeah, until you realize that gold in the flower, And that's actually one of the techniques I use with clients in terms of reconnecting with nature is getting to know what is around you. Yeah. Because I think that can be a barrier at times. Nature, especially for people who are not didn't grow up with it like me or used to more urban environments. when sort of like how we talk to people, right? Like you get to know the person, you ask them questions, you learn about their life, whatever. Same thing with nature, like what kind of flower is this? What kind of properties is it? Does it have? What does it like? Full sun, partial sun?
Yeah.
What season is it going to come out? What is the aroma? You really get to know it. And so I encourage people to sit with a tree, get up close to the tree, notice like what the bark is looking like. And now take a step back, take several steps back and see what you notice now. And like, so it is about spending time with things. And yeah, I do think we sort of, I think it's true that we sort of kill those things that we don't understand. And no shade to you. I'm just saying.
Oh no, I'm very shady.
Very like, it's interesting. That's why I encourage
And it's another one that grows in the crack of sidewalks and stuff. And
is it personally?
And it tastes really good. Like you can pull it and just rinse it and eat it. I
think it might be personally. And is it like so milky?
Good. No, it's like a crunchy kind of. I'm gonna have to look it up. I can't remember the name, but at one point I was growing a lot of it, and it's anti-cancerous.
Interesting. Okay.
Properties in it. And my mom, who had died 5 years ago, I was looking at different healing modalities and different herbs and things like that. And I was like, wow, there's so many things that are just out there and we don't know. So, and I learned about dandelion, but it does make your yard look bad. So yes, I wasn't able to eat it wild in my yard, but I was able to like go to mom's and stuff and get it. But I don't know how we got on that. So, I was just thinking about nature. Yeah. And you were saying getting to know nature. I have a confession to tell you.
Tell me.
Actually, before we had went on our walk, I hate birds. They're very annoying and they're scary looking with their beady eyes.
Are you serious? I had no idea.
Yes, but you had intrigued me because you're like, oh no, there's different ones and they do this. And I'm really surprised that there's not more. And I was like, you actually... And then I was like listening to this. I was like, oh wait, but she's right. It kind of does sound nice. Like, so you made me I downloaded an app that you told me about, the Merlin app, and it's like 10 different birds in my backyard. I think it's called the Merlin.
Yes, it's Merlin. Yeah.
So just so you know that I'm not making this up, my life list. So look at how many birds are in my neighborhood. It's like 10 or 12.
Wow.
And so even when I went on a walk at my job, I was like, oh, that's a different kind of bird. And it ended up being a red-winged blackbird.
Oh, I've seen those. Yep.
And they make this like nice sound. So I was like, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Thank you for telling me that. No, but this is a great example about how when you know what is around, you sort of look forward to it and you open yourself up to it, right?
That's like a different sound than I've heard before. And my son had got me a puzzle from England and it's like different birds. So I'll take a picture. I don't know if you want to see it, but I'm going to share it because I think you would appreciate it. But it's different birds and it's showing the birds kind of look the same. So it's like how it's the red-winged blackbird, but then it could look like a blackbird, but their sounds and everything are different.
That's really cool.
So the poster the puzzle has it there because I love doing puzzles. And so I was like, wow, I think that's what made me when we think about different messages or lessons that life has to teach us. I think you came at that time where it was like, the Lord really was speaking to me about paying attention to that. So when I sit outside, I don't have the earbuds in.
Yeah.
Or when I would go for a walk now, I used to always make sure I have song or I'm doing, I'll repeat affirmations. I don't do that anymore because I want to hear the bird sounds.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, well, I feel that it's healing me or it's calming me down.
Yeah. And there's a lot of research out there too that indicates that bird song in particular is one of the top most relaxing nature sounds for people. That, running water, a few others. But yeah, what is interesting.
And you didn't even tell me that. I just
I never told you.
I should just listen.
Yeah. But the interesting part about the bird song is that it's really good for the nervous system, which is probably why most of us feel that relaxation part. but also bird song is really active when there's like no threats around. So the fact that we hear it a lot, it's just, it signifies peace, right? Because there's no predators after them.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. And actually, this is really interesting too. When I got back from that backpacking trip, I was very overstimulated, because when you're out in the backcountry for 3 days or more, it is like you sort of like, and they said it like, we need to talk about integration. And I sort of rolled my eyes like, we'll be fine. But no, when I came back, everything felt loud. It was just too much. The only thing I think that saved me was the bird song in my backyard. And some of the birds that I heard in my backyard were out in the mountains that we were in. So that was really a great way for me to integrate very slowly. Like everything was hard, even getting in the shower, because I wasn't used to that. You know, you bathe with what you can. There's no hot water coming down. You know, I had to get used to the temperature changes, because it was really cold at night and really cold in the morning. And then
because of summer.
Yeah, because of the high elevation. I think one night, I think someone said it registered at like 40 degrees.
Were you prepared?
I was not, but that is life, right? You have to adapt.
Did you have a good sleep?
After like the second night, I started to adjust.
Okay.
Yeah. And my sleeping bag was a good one. It was rated for around 30, and I had a sleeping bag liner, but I wasn't prepared for the quick shift in cold temperatures. So but that's life, right? Like just adjusting, adapting to all of these different changes. And that's part of why this work, I think, is so unique with bringing in that element of nature, because it mirrors our lives. Nature acts as a mirror. So
I was thinking about what you said about the birds are singing when they feel at peace.
Yeah.
But what about, and I know you've probably thought about this, what about us being at peace enough to like hear them? Because I think before I used to be like, oh my God, why are they chirping so early in the morning? It was aggravating to me. But like now, I have a dog that wakes up at 5 a.m., 5:30. And that like puts me on alarm. But I feel like the birds kind of like, it triggers me to kind of be up. I listen for the birds and stuff. So now her bark isn't even like as aggressive to me, where it's like, oh my God, I know this dog is down there. She's ready to go out. She possibly could have messed up the cage because she's like very, what do you call it? I guess she's elderly and disoriented and poops and does all kind of crazy stuff. But it's like, I can shift by that, and I'll just like wake up now around 5. It annoys me that I have to take her out, but it's like now I feel the peacefulness of the walk. Yeah. When I hear the birds and stuff, where I didn't notice that before. I think maybe now I'm a little bit more mature, where it's like, what's the lesson? And I finally got it. It's time for me to be quiet. It's like the Lord made that situation where it's like I can get up and appreciate the birds, the sparrow's song, the dove song, because it's a mourning dove that is around us, and it goes in the
one right in my backyard. They built a nest and some more, like really close by me. So I was watching them.
So they have a nice song that starts very early in the morning.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that now. Whereas before it was like, I really believe I just was on edge and agitated before.
You're in a place of stillness now. Yeah. And stillness can like open you up to those experiences more. Yeah. It's just like, you don't even have to do anything in nature. You can just be, because nature just is, right? And so there's a like inherent stillness in being out there too. I love it. I want to be outside as much as possible. And I love it.
So your favorite spot would be the woods, or where?
Yeah, I think it would be woods, probably a mixture of woods and mountain. Okay. But I'm so adaptable. Like I could also be in a really flat area as long as I see green and sky, which is often everywhere, right? So but ideally, hopefully, hopefully, yeah.
But when we're in the concrete jungle, that's like part of the city life that really makes it toxic for people. It's higher heat because there's not a lot of grass and trees. It's a lot of pollution, and the pollution sits because there's not a lot of green stuff to filter that through.
So in those cases, because like in one of the office area that I work out of, I'll have people, it's all concrete. It's right downtown.
Yeah.
So, but there is a little park across the street. And I have my clients there ranging ages from about 25 up to 80s. The oldest I had was 85.
How awesome is that they are still working on themselves?
Yeah, it's important. I mean, because we all need the work, right? And that's important. But what I do is because like making it more accessible, everybody cannot walk. People have chronic health conditions, etc. So for those who can walk, we'll walk around that little park, like a 2-minute walk from the office. And then for people who want to sit more, we can go up onto the top floor, which is the parking garage, and we sit there and we talk about perspective shifting, right? Because when you're that high up, yes, it's a city view, but the sky is still there, the sun is still there, the clouds are still there, and you'll see like how tiny your problems become when your perspective shifts a bit. So it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But it's about opening yourself to be able to notice these things and apply them to your lives, And other times I might just put out a blanket and we just sit on chairs on the blanket outside. The sun, vitamin D, that's very healing.
I love it. I love the sun.
Yeah. So,
because a lot of times just that will help our brain reset.
And our mood.
Yeah.
So one of I see a lot of people with chronic health issues, and one of the first questions that I'm asking is, how's your sleep and how's your appetite? And when we start talking about sleep, I'm also asking about, what are your vitamin D levels? Because I work with the PCPs there as well. Have you talked with your provider about testing you for that? Now, the one that I work with most closely with, she screens everyone for a vitamin D level, and almost a sizable amount of people have low vitamin D levels, which is common in African American communities. Our skin is darker, so it's harder to convert the vitamin D from the sun, and most people are indoors now. So hence why it is so important to get outside and expose yourself to the sun and get some of that. But I do notice when people's vitamin D levels come up, whether they are taking the vitamin once weekly and then transitioning to being outside more when possible, it makes a huge difference on sleep, everything, mood. It is amazing. So nature really does heal.
Yes. And I just want to say this. I know a lot of Black women, men, they don't want to go in the sun because they don't want to get darker. Put your sunblock on. You will be fine going outside. It's for your health. It's good for you. The sun is actually good for you.
Yeah.
So moving on to some of the questions that we have. Nature's healing power. What are some of the most surprising or impactful ways you've seen nature improve mental health in your work with Nature Heals? Or I know you're not totally, so Quanshay is starting her Nature Heals in the fall, winter season. It's upcoming. So we'll also leave her contact information so you can connect with her. But right now in the work that you're doing, what are the most impactful ways that you've seen nature improvement?
Yeah, I think
we've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, like the running water. The sound of water, just running water, it does a really good job of flushing out some of like the mental chatter, which I didn't really think about before, but it makes sense. It sort of drowns it all out if you sit there long enough. So that one's really cool. We talked about the vitamin D and the sun exposure. Yeah, and I think just sort of like, I realize when I'm out in the woods, I'm not thinking, oh, that's an ugly tree.
Right. They're all
right. So it's a confidence booster in that, like, objectively, it is all really beautiful.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, well, what if we thought about ourselves that way? And so really, like I was saying earlier, nature is a mirror. And so like just being out there, I think I've been able to gain so much insight into my own personal life, and it's all coming from nature. It is a mirror for me. And so like having like the sound of running water to sort of drown out some of the like background noise or like some of the internal chatter that we all struggle with at times. And even the leaves changing color in the fall, those leaves are dying.
Right.
And it's so beautiful at the same time. And so it's just, it calls the question a lot. Like, can death be beautiful? Absolutely, it can.
Yeah.
It can.
I think it does. It has to really, that's like the maturity stage of us processing through life. That's when you see death as really the beauty that it is, that, this person is going to be at peace. They're not having all the issues and the worries and the trials of being here on earth. It really is. And what they've done in their life to touch other people, it is beautiful. But it's like we have to get to that state of maturity where you can accept it like that.
Right. And so because we've been disconnected from the outdoors, like we lose touch of that. You'd really have to be out there long enough to be free or less weighed down by your issues to be able to go, oh my God, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
And those leaves are dying. Now, how does this parallel to a loss that I've had? And I think the other thing too, with death being beautiful is that we grieve because we love.
Yeah.
So because I specialize in grief and loss, when I am working with people who are working through grief, I'm really there learning about who they loved and how they were loved. And so that is a completely different perspective when we think about grief work, because people will say, oh, that's so heavy. How could you do it? And I worked in hospice for 3 years, and that was another kind of like intense experience, which I loved. I laughed the most there, like big belly laughs, and just it was amazing. But it was about, yes, it's death, and there's sadness, rightfully so, that comes with that. But there's also a tremendous beauty with it as well. And it's just like we grieve because we love. So I'm hearing about people's love stories really, and helping them navigate life now that they've lost the love of their life.
Right.
So it's really beautiful work. I am always energized by it, and I love it.
Do you remember when we met and you were talking about like working in a hospice, and you were like, it was so great, and I was like, it was great. And I was asking you questions because it's like, well, why does this young person think that working in a hospice is this great and stuff? And exactly what you had said. So like, you're just so authentic to that experience. Like, and I think that's why you were able to like bring people joy as they were transitioning. Because I think if you weren't invested in the clients that were there, you wouldn't have had that light to give them, and you wouldn't have been able to receive their light either.
Yeah.
Because like, that's the thing that I think sometimes we miss when we don't show up in a certain healed way and receptive way, and like, we're not getting what that other person can give us too.
Yeah, let me give you a quick story about that. In the context of hospice, I was working with a 93-year-old woman. She's from the Caribbean, and she would never talk or rarely talk. She would only answer in one word in responses. No.
Like, get out of here.
Like she was transitioning, right?
Yeah.
But I never took that personally. And people deal with their impending transitions differently. And I still, because to your point about like being open and being healed and working towards healing, really, it is like you see things in a different light. Like, I think my heart was so full of like love that didn't bother me. And so I think I may have had her, and when I say had her, I mean worked with her for about like maybe a little less than a month. So it was relatively quick. And so I remember preparing her for her bath, and I went to go grab something, and I don't know how this thought came to me. And it came to me like a thought, like, oh, it's raining outside. Okay. And the thought was, this would be a pretty gown to transition in, to die in. And I don't know why that popped into my mind, but it did. And so I purposely grabbed the yellow gown with flowers on it, took it back into the room, cleaned up. And then I shut the door to put her stuff back at the drawer. And it sounded sort of like a sneeze. And she said, "Bless you." And I just I was thinking, oh, she thought I sneezed. So I didn't even respond back to her. I was like, oh, she thought I sneezed. So I put the stuff back. And she had trouble talking a lot, but she would say one word of things, right? And then I forget what else. I think maybe I was putting her rails up or something for safety. And she, with all of her might, said, "God bless you." And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, she blessed me. So that was why that was really powerful. It was, like I said, she spoke very little. And when she did, it was in those one-worded tones. I go out the room and then I come back. No, I'm in a room with another patient. And then the nurse comes in and tells me that she just passed.
Wow.
Yeah. And I didn't wake up that day thinking she would pass, but somehow my spirit knew that would be a pretty gown to go in. And she did. She passed that day. But it was so beautiful because her son came in later that day and was like, "Which one of y'all worked with my mother?" And I was like, "Me?" Like, not sure where he was going with this. And he was like, "Oh, she loved you." And I'm thinking, what? She never said much, but it was the care and the attention that I gave her. I always would talk, even though she barely responded, and I gave her the utmost care and respect. And she blessed me before she transitioned. How special is that? I felt like that blessing was probably the equivalent of 1,000,000 blessings, because when you're that close to transitioning, it is a whole different kind of playing field, or a different kind of sacredness involved. And so I always remember that when I'm having a tough time, I think about her blessing me right before she transitioned. So yes, opening yourself up to healing and being ready for healing is one of the most important things you could do for yourself and for the people around you.
Definitely. And I think one of the things that with nature that I had started talking about in the intro is when you're going through grief. When I was going through grieving my mom's death, it was like me being in the garden, me going on walks. And it's like that grief sometimes can feel heavy, but that connection with nature kind of can bring you back full circle of, like you were talking about, how the weeds, but how different trees, we don't say, "Oh, that tree is just so ugly," or this thing. And even when you see weeds in the forest and stuff, you don't say they're ugly. It's just like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a cute plant," or whatever. You're not like, we don't perceive it as a weed unless it's somewhere it's not, we don't want it to be. But just that whole process of grief and the different stages of it, I don't think I would have appreciated nature so much, even because in my grieving, it was like when we had my husband had bought a condo at the beach, and we were able to spend time cleaning up the condo, doing all these things because it's a rental property. But just having that opportunity helped me get another level of healing. But I don't think I would have appreciated it as much if I didn't go through that heavy period.
Yeah.
It would have just been like, "Oh, we're just on the beach looking cute." But it's like when we've gone after that, it was like just something that was healing for me. Even I had foot surgery. And I remember it was slow, but walking on the beach to get my foot stronger. And at first not being able to go as far, but being able to appreciate the waves and being able to appreciate, oh, I'm just so grateful that I'm down here now and able to reset, because just even having surgery is kind of a grief, but I don't know where I was going with that.
You're just talking about how it's been able to help you with your grief, and the full circle moment is, like you said, your mother the beach was a huge part of her life.
Huge part.
Yeah. And then having a rental property right on the beachfront near the water is like another way to still connect with her. So like death severs our physical relationship with people, but the emotional aspect of it stays intact. So physically she's not here in the body, but you see her when you're at the beach, and all of that is your brain is processing that and having that connection.
And I don't even know that, but it is like, you know, that, oh, I think I know what it was. The inner voice, you being, I guess, in tuned enough to like listen, obedient enough to actually do. And I think a lot of times when we're older, we see it in little kids a lot. You'll be like, well, why did you do that? And they're like, I don't know. I just wanted to do it. Yeah. But like when you get older, your inner voice will tell you stuff. And if it doesn't make sense to your mind, you won't do it. But in that instance, you were like obedient. Well, you were listening. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to do this. And you were able to like reap the benefits of that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I think sometimes we just don't take that time, those moments.
Stillness.
Just the inner voice doesn't even come out because of all the other stuff we're trying to do.
Which, to my earlier point about carrying less stuff in the Bag Lady song running through my head, it's just like we carry so much. We accumulate things, emotional and physical things throughout our lifetimes. And I am, and especially probably, I was like this for a while, but hospice also really made me aware of that, because when people transition, it's it. Like, and even as they're coming in, their life is now confined to a tiny 4x4 room. Yeah. People had whole careers and children and families, and now they're confined to a room in a sense. And so it really got me thinking about like, we have so much stuff, because then after we would need to clean, after the transition, we would clean the rooms out and get the family together. Things were donated if no one claimed it. And it was interesting when people came in with very little as well too. So I do think that there's something to be said about how much we accumulate, but also emotionally. Yeah. We talk a lot about physical accumulation, but not so much about emotional, you know. And
that's that whole song.
When I'm cleaning, I'm like, even when I'm thinking about all that, it's just like it doesn't serve us, and maybe it served us at one point, but life is ever changing, just like the leaves on a tree and the seasons and the clouds, they pass by. Things cannot just stay fixed and accumulate. It's just not the natural order of things. And so we just sort of need time to catch up with that. And I think like spending time outdoors, and whether it's a park or backcountry or at your local beach, it can really, and just be a little bit still and take it all in, can really be very healing and can help shift perspectives.
So we're located now in Baltimore, Maryland. There are so many, we're blessed in Maryland, actually. There's so many parks, green spaces purposely. I remember I had visited my daughter in Johns Hopkins area, and it's a green patch of thing in the concrete jungle, but it's like you wouldn't even notice it because the trees are so beautiful. I mean, you wouldn't notice it was a concrete jungle because they purposely put the green space there. And it was so peaceful, and it was like you know, a man-made little water fountain, and it was a little kid just playing in there, and it was like that piece of outdoors is like a reset. So it was outside of a cancer center, a cancer building. But I just thought that was so smart, purposeful for them to use the space, not for another building. Or it was like not a memorial, but they had like positive words on the step. Then they had the water fountain, they had trees, they had a little green patch. So it was like, you can reset if you're a patient, if you're one of the doctors or nurses or one of the techs there, because I can imagine it could be heavy times. And then they also have like this beautiful Starbucks there. But it's just like they were purposeful, that it was like a happy space.
Yeah. And you see how purposeful they were about incorporating nature's elements of nature. too, and so I encourage people to do that for themselves as well. Like if you go outside and the only green thing you see is some weeds growing out of a sidewalk, you can cultivate the environment that you want. You can put up go and get some seeds for birds and invite them to come and hang it on your back porch or on your rail or whatever you had. Like we don't have to have lack, and there is so much abundance in nature. Like you will see, like I planted one seed a few summers back. I love watermelon. Like it makes people uncomfortable at times because if I'm eating watermelon, I'm going to eat it until there is it all the way down to the rind, and even then, I'm still not satisfied.
You're gonna pickle because some people pickle them and eat them.
Oh, I didn't know. That's the thing. It is hands down for sure my favorite fruit.
But wait, why does? Never mind. I think I know because we're both from Black culture.
Yeah.
Is it because of that?
Well, I think it's that, but also I aggressively eat watermelon. I'm just like, just look away what I do what I need to do. So I purchased some watermelon seeds because I love them so much, and I planted I think I put like 2 seeds and this is in a little basket that I got from
fan myself again. Sorry, y'all.
Sorry. It's a little basket that I got from Dollar Tree, and I just lined it with some cloth and then soil and put the 2 seeds in there. And then I set it up against a chain link fence, which is bordering my house. And the neighbor, no one lived there, so it was fine. And it blossomed. Those 2 seeds turned into 8 different little baby watermelons, and then each watermelon had about 30 seeds in there. And again, so when you're paying attention to life, right, you see
that's pretty awesome.
There's a lot of abundance in that, and it's just like, this is why I think we in general don't need as much as we think we might need. It's just so much abundance. So that's my little story about abundance.
So I love that idea of bringing nature to us, and that leads us into not resilience and grounding, but accessibility to nature. So if you're in the city and you were saying you can't necessarily grow a whole backyard full of things, but maybe you could do a raised garden, maybe you could do the hanging basket. What's the other things? I guess like a ledge planter kind of deal.
Yeah, you can do that against a rail. I've seen people have just a small laundry basket, and actually I've used those too. I live in a row house, so it's tight quarters there. I use laundry baskets as well. Put the soil in there. I line it because I don't want the plastic. And I grow stuff in there. I had a blueberry plant coming out of one of those. And that's another way to connect with nature. Like if you can't get to a park regularly, but you can water your plants regularly, you'll find the same effects.
Like that connection.
Yeah, there's positive ions in soil. So, which is especially useful for depression. So feeling depressed, and I tested this for myself. I don't know what was going on. I was feeling down, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go in the garden, and I just started. And I didn't have any gloves on. I just put my hands in the soil, and probably within about 15 minutes or so, I was feeling connected, like literally grounded. So that's really useful as well. And maybe you don't want to plant anything. Maybe you just want to be in the soil.
I love the thing about the bird feeder though, because then it's kind of and certain areas, we get hummingbirds, so you could just put that up if you didn't want to do the bigger bird.
Yeah.
And funny thing about the soil you were saying, so there's a book called The Nature Fix, which I thought you had recommended to me, but that must have just been Holy Spirit giving me a resource. But it talks about the ions in the soil as well. It's so when I say read, I do Audible.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of cheating. My girls don't like that, but
the same thing.
It's like a 10-hour read. It's in a nice, it's not read by the author, but it's a good resource. And it's all about the research of us interacting with nature and it affecting our brain. So that's one of the things they were talking about in Japan, that they actually tested the soil and how it has the healing properties in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is right under our noses. Like what we talked about earlier, getting so busy and sort of bogged down with everything, it can be really hard to see. And like I'm exploring all of the weeds that grow in my yard right now, and it is amazing. The things that I'm learning, and I'm just like, there is so much healing to be had.
And you're in the city, you said, right?
I am in Baltimore City. Baltimore City,
and it's
right?
Still so many variety in.
Yes, and when I'm not cutting the grass religiously, it's just like you see so many different weeds, and a weed is really a flower that we don't want to be there,
right?
And so the question is, why wouldn't I want this here? I'm learning about broadleaf plantain, which is a very common weed that almost all of us have seen. Broadleaf plantain. I'll show it to you. And actually, when I came back from backcountry, I saw some and I put it on my little bug bite. I had no idea where this bite was from, and it's starting to smooth over, but it has huge anti-inflammatory properties. It is edible. It's good for digestion, so leaky gut, just all kinds of things. And these are weeds growing in this city that people are like, oh, like, why would you live there? Or like, they have all these negative thoughts about the city. And I'm just like, look at God.
Yeah.
Like, look at all of this abundance. Look at it's like life is just sort of like, there's things that happen, unfortunate things. And then at the same time, there is like all of this healing available to me, and ignorance of not knowing like what this is. I'm just like, I'm going to just take it out. But now I'm making salads. I'm making like spit poultices, meaning like you chew it up and then you put it on something and let it heal. I'm doing a lot, and I think but this is available to us all. So I'm really big on making sure that I'm knowing like what something is before I try to get rid of it, as to the degree possible. But so the point I'm making there is that there is so much diversity in healing there. And I was thinking like, I have different things going on with me, and I'm like, I probably could heal myself in my backyard. And then thinking about the seasons, right? Because that stuff is running rampant now, and I'm picking it. So it's encouraging it to grow more, right? But I'm getting what I need out of it. And then, the winter's going to come. And now I'm curious about what kinds of things grow in the winter that I can still have. Purslane just came up in like on the side. In the back of my yard. I pulled that up this morning, and I cannot wait to bake a salad that has the highest amount of omega.
So maybe we are talking about the same thing. Is that one have anti-cancerous antioxidants? I'm sorry,
antioxidants for sure. Okay. It has the highest amount of antioxidants.
I think we're talking about the same thing.
Okay, yeah. I really enjoy it. And
it's kind of lemony?
Yes, that's Purslane. I love it. It's so much of it growing in California. When I went to visit, I forget which part I was in, I saw it all over the sidewalks, and I was telling my friend, like, oh my God, this is Purslane. And I'm like, people looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, do you know what this is, though? So, yeah.
So I had actually planted some in my garden to take up.
It takes over.
Yeah, but I like that because at least it's something that I know that we can eat and stuff, or at least I would eat. But something came through and killed everything, like I don't know if it was black spot, but it infected my roses, everything that was in there except some evergreen bush and 2 bushes. So ever since that, and it was also, I didn't water it. We had went through a time where it wasn't really raining. So it was like, I didn't have time to like pay attention to the garden. And 2 of my rose bushes had black spot and died and some other stuff. And I don't know why. Oh, we were talking about the herbs in the garden. The herbs in the garden. But so that's a way that we can bring the outside to us if we're in the city. If you can't be on the ground, you can have kind of the raised pots. So we are kind of talking about it now, but some of the barriers that prevent people to getting to nature. And I know you talked about if you're like maybe in a high rise going to a rooftop, if you're able to just go like, Johns Hopkins is in the thick of what I guess that's Baltimore City though.
Yeah.
In the middle of the city, if you can go to the green spaces, you should just take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Take your shoes off.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that because you're the professional.
Well, just being grounded, like I was saying earlier, these it's positive. There's some there are these charges. It can like sort of balance you with just grounding yourself. So being barefoot out in the grass, preferably if you know it hasn't been sprayed, and having your feet there is just really grounding. And a few years back when I used to live in Atlanta briefly, I remember sort of like there was a roseberry bush right outside of where I lived with a group of people, and we would take from it and like you cook with it all the time. But one time I went out there and I just was like, oh, it feels so nice. I'm going to take my shoes off. I did that, and the soil was just so like giving in a sense. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, the earth is supporting me.
Yeah.
It's supporting all of us, right? But in that moment, I was like very connected, and I could feel the weight of me in the soil adjusting to my weight, because it was like, it wasn't hard soil, and it just felt so good. And I was like, I feel supported, and I was in tears because it just felt like, oh my God, like all of these forces are working for me to be supported, but yes, grounding is
inspirational. Now I'm going to go home now and try to take it and be like, look, I found soft dirt. I'm in the dirt right now.
Feel the weight. Feel the soil to support you. Yeah.
But I think that's so amazing because a lot of times I'm blessed to have like a good group of people that are educated in different healing modalities. Like I didn't know the Lord would put me with you and that you would teach me about the birds and another level of grounding, because I didn't even think about that. Like if we're really, because I've heard of it before and I walked on the grass, and I think it's my maturity level now too, because yes, I walked in the grass, but now it's like, another level is, for me to really connect to the ground and how it feels and how do I feel when I'm walking through it and stuff. That's
play around, like with balance. What if you leaned a little bit to the right? What do you notice? How about the left? What if you just stood there? And how does your perspective change standing on the ground versus laying on the ground? And like in the summertime as well, like the ground is a natural air conditioner. It is so cool,
right,
to the touch when you lay on the ground versus not. And so it is God. I think it is so. It's really hard to feel alone as well when you're out in nature, because we have species isolation, because feeling alone is a huge thing now with everybody sort of being disconnected, but connected in some ways, primarily social media. But I think that when you're out there, you learn very quickly, which is what I learned in West Virginia. I'm not alone. There's like little ants. And we had a day of solitude where it was just for 8 hours straight. It's just you and the elements, which I thrived in because I like to reflect and sit back and think.
So are you an introvert?
People would call me that. I think I have some elements of that. Yes. Yeah. I'm going to just say yes. I don't get a lot of energy from people, but it's just not because I'm really sensitive to energies. And so, and when I'm with people, I usually give them all of my attention, and I don't often get that from a lot of people. People are really distracted. So yes, having that time away just for myself was really important. But I also learned, like, I am not alone. There's ants crawling. You start befriending things that you didn't even think of because it's just you.
Who are you talking to the ants? Hi, Mr. Ant. How?
There was like crawfish in the lake, which is in the stream, which is a really good sign of relatively healthy water. I saw a crawfish. I saw I think I saw a little snake, but it wasn't anything serious. Deer were running in the background. Little bugs, just birds, butterflies. And so it's just like you are not alone. And sometimes feeling alone can be an added kind of weight, but like I said, just spending time in stillness to be able to see all the other creatures, living things that are around you. Like, we're not the only ones here. So that helps put things in perspective too.
Mm-hmm. So interesting story about you. When we had went on our walk, we had went a couple of weeks ago, walked through Druid Hill Park. And you really opened my eyes to a lot of different things in nature. And I remember I was just walking and I think talking, and you were like, wait a minute. And you like heard and saw through the corner of your eye the deer in the background, and just you being that intuitive. But also that you had said at first you were scared of the deer.
Yeah. And I think that also is a function of just not being exposed to that. Like I said, I grew up.
Their eyes are big though, I will say that.
They are big.
It's like,
it's the sudden movements for me, but they're so beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, growing up with not being exposed to the outdoors, it's just like, oh, it's a big living thing. I don't know what it's going to do. Everything was sort of like a threat.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing that, and like as I get older, and I will say, if I'm by myself and it's really close, I will still get that fear. And actually, yesterday I was walking around in Lincoln Park, and I found this beautiful trail. Oh my God. But I was by myself, which I typically try not to do, but I had my location on, so it was fine. And I heard some rustling, and it was a deer, but it didn't see me. I could just tell the sound of the rustling. I knew it was a big animal thing. And so I just said, I'm here. And then the sound stopped. And then I walked through the path and got to where I wanted to go. But that, when I was with you.
Was that, though? Yeah.
How can I what?
No, I said, how beautiful is that? You were like, I'm here. I'm just going to walk through.
Yeah.
I love you. Goodbye.
and I was afraid, and so that's to the point of like.
Because you didn't know how it was going to react or whatever.
Yeah, it could have charged me. It could have had its little babies. I don't know. I just knew that I had to keep going, which is what I learned in the Dolly Sides. So like, if you stop, you're going to hold people in the back up, and you might lose track of the people in front of you. So you have to keep going. And in that moment, I remember feeling fear, because that's sort of like was a fear of mine. And specifically if I'm by myself, but it happened, and I just said, I'm here. And then it stopped rustling and went on its business. And then I went to where I was going and came back, and I could see some deer in the distance as well.
That's such a testament to, you can start out not being a nature person and liking being outside, but it's like you exposing yourself to it, and then also kind of educating yourself with the animals. So maybe if you were scared of deer, because they are big, they do look different with their eyes on the side. You could just learn about them and then just use that when you're walking, I'm going to walk. And if I perceive the animal doesn't see me, I can just be at peace and just say, because I think we forget that we are part of nature too. Yeah. And they can understand us too.
Yeah.
So if we're frantic, they're getting frantic. If we're calm and peaceful, that's just my friend just walking on their journey.
And I didn't make any sudden movements, although it probably would have just ran it off, scared it off. And I just sort of just like acknowledged it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, also being out in the Dolly Sides, I remember thinking that the only the things that matter most in these moments are, do I have a source for water? When are we going to eat? Social connection, a bit of that, and just sort of like working through my grief and moving my body and resting well. Yeah. So it was like these core things, but also I was really aware of like sudden sounds, which is why coming back here to the city was so stimulating, because if anything is rustling in the woods, it is an animal, or like you're trying to use the bathroom and you just want privacy. So I just became really hyper aware of like sudden sounds. And so bringing that back here was just too much, because there's sounds everywhere. It's like, oh my God, I was so tired. Overload, sensory overload. But why that is useful, I realize, is because it brings you in the present moment.
Yeah.
So from a mental health perspective, if you're in the present moment, you are not depressed thinking about things that are in the past, because depression tends to follow that sort of thought process, thinking back, and then anxiety is usually forward, thinking ahead. And so you can't be anxious or depressed if you're in the present moment,
Right.
which is why nature was being out there so long was so healing. I was only thinking about the next moment, really. And so it's like it opens you up to the here and now. And when you hear like a leaf, the sound of someone walking, you just stop and you notice it. And you're constantly in the moment, but it's not overstimulating like in more modern world. So that was a really huge takeaway as well. Like I was so, like, my senses were so sharp when I got back. And I think I still have that. And I try to make sure I'm in the woods at least every weekend, every other weekend to keep that up.
Because it hasn't been that long. How long
I was out there, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. Well, 3 weeks ago now since I've been back. So, but I just want to be there all the time. It's just easy for the most part, you know?
So thinking now, after going through that experience, what do you think your next steps will be?
Yeah, I definitely want to guide people through an experience like a backpacking experience. I want to make it a little more, bring the historical elements into it for people, make it a little relevant, specifically for people of color and Black people specifically. And I'm also working with a friend of mine who is
I think I'm that friend.
You're that friend that
okay. And hopefully a couple of other people that are going to help us lift this beautiful idea.
Yeah. So
we're going to make it real.
It is real. I mean, it's happening.
It is real, right?
I have a few private clients now, though I'm working full time elsewhere. I do, you start off with a seed, right? Just like in the garden, and then it blossoms, you water it. And this is part of that, spreading the word and just doing a good job, doing what you do well, and it will naturally grow. So, but I am also working with another friend of mine, and she's out in a different country, and we're planning a trip so that I can
I'm going with you. I'm going with her, and she doesn't know yet.
No, we both are so very excited. More to come on that. But the goal, there's one cool thing I can say about that is that where she lives right now, there's parts of the year where the sun stays up till like midnight. So we do something like a midnight hike, though, right? So we'd hike up this mountain, because where she is, it's beautiful mountains, and you can watch the sun set and rise all within like a 30-minute span.
I love that for us.
Yeah. So that's more to come.
I'm speaking it into existence. I love that for us.
Yeah, it will be here. It's gonna do what it's gonna do, and I'm excited for that. It's just like when you do what your heart is calling you to do, since I was young, my uncle used to call me Earth Lady. Like, that was my nickname, because I was always in the dirt, like looking, like interested in the world beyond myself. And now it's coming back full circle that this is part of who I am. Yeah. And I can offer this interest of mine, this crafting of sorts to other people to facilitate their healing process on this journey. So I'm looking at multiple ways we can do that. And of course, the nature walks, the group ones, and the working with other like corporate groups, etc. Like this is for everyone.
Yeah, and that's exciting, because I think one of the things that corporate America has access to is the funding and, the resources to allow them to experience things like that. But like with the work that you're doing, you're going to be able to do that not only to corporate America, but also like our city folk, our urban folk.
And that is a special population to me. I mean, just being from this city, born and raised, and hearing all of the negativity about it, and experiencing some of it, but also experiencing how beautiful it is in all of its forms. It's this city holds a special place in my heart. I've lived in a few other cities, mostly for school. So I lived in Atlanta and in Michigan. I spent some time in different countries, and then I always come back, and people are shocked. You went where?
Right.
Wow, why
That's what I said about you. Like, that's so amazing.
And it's like, this is home. Like, this is home. This will always be home. And no matter where I go, like, I purchased a home here. So this will always be home base. I feel I cannot explain it. It is something about this city. And I know there's a lot of painful experiences here, especially from the people that I work with when they share their stories. I also know there are other aspects to it too. So that population as well, which is why it makes sense for me to start this here and then offer opportunities for people to make those nature connections outdoors in other like areas, but also other countries. I mean, because my friend, she's German by background, and her husband is from Rwanda. So we're talking about doing something in Rwanda as well, so this is
I'm going to that global, too. I'll be there for that. You're like, you're not going to follow me everywhere. I am. No, I'm going to support you, and I'm going to promote this because I think a lot of times in the Black community, we don't have those champions of projects like this, and then they kind of just fizzle out. But I feel that you're so passionate about it and your light is so bright about it that other people are going to catch on to that, and you're going to really be able to take it to levels that you didn't even think about.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I mean by like getting yourself to a place of stillness where you can be clear about what you want, even if you don't know exactly what the next steps are. I just say put one foot in front of the other. You cannot climb a ladder by just shooting all the way to the top. You have to put one foot and one hand in front of the other. And I think the same thing about life, like just make the move. I didn't know that outreach in that day that I did for nature healing.
Who knew? We were like one of the few, and that's the thing, like everyone can have the opportunity. I think we were 3 of maybe 12 people that were supposed to be there that day. And everyone can get the same opportunities, but then it's like the people who are showing up are the ones who are going to get the benefits of it. So even we were talking, I forget the lady's name that was with us, but she was saying when you're ready to do something in Pigtown that she would make an opportunity for us. So it's like, really, we just have to show up. And if you didn't want to talk to me that day, that would have been something else. Like if you were like, oh my God, no, why is she asking so many questions? But it was like, you were willing to explain it to me. So then it was like, and just from the little bit you had told me, because we were even talking about where my eyes go when I'm talking and stuff. So it's just like, when we're in those situations, what are we willing to glean out of it? Because I could have been like, oh my God, that was so hokey. Why? Like, but just listening, and I said, okay. Like, so we also got to be ready for when the opportunities are there and what we're going to learn from them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it unfolds, like it just does. So to anybody out there that just might be feeling like, I don't know what my next steps are. Just take a step. Like I always say this, I have so many wild experiences in terms of like, how did you even get here? And it's just like, all I know is when a door appears, I open it. It's very hard for me to just like not open a door, like figuratively, in that there's all these opportunities. Just see where it goes. And I think that is sort of like following your own, your internal sort of compass and getting to a place that is more congruent with you, and we don't know it all, but that's okay. You just have to put one foot in front of the other.
And I think we get stuck in, or at least I know I do at my big age. Oh, well, what if it fails? And it's kind of like, at least if you're doing the things that you really love to do, you're not going to be misled. But it's like, if you're doing things that other people want you to do, most likely it's going to lead you somewhere because you didn't even want to go there. You were just doing it to help someone else. So it's like, I've been reading a lot of self-help books. And when I say reading, listening, so don't come for me, but listening to these books, because it's just so much wisdom out there. And I feel like we just throw things to the side. And one of the books that I re-listened to was Oprah's book on What I Know for Sure. It is a little hokey, but one of the things that she reiterates over and over again is that you have to do the things that you know are in your heart to do, that you know you were purposed in this world to do. She's very clear about that. And I think somewhere for me, I know as a woman, I just kind of was going along with other people's stuff, my mom's stuff, whatever my husband wanted to do. And it's not that someone was pressuring me, but it's just like I felt like that was what I was supposed to do. But in the book, she's so clear about that. Like, yeah, and it doesn't matter if you end up doing the wrong things. It's just do the thing that you know you want to do. You're not going to go wrong. Even if it's a failure. She's like, even if it's a failure, you'll still be on the right path.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I think I get what she's saying, because it's like, and sometimes I have to tell my daughters that even if you fail at something, if it was something you wanted to do, or if it didn't turn out the way you expected, it's fine, because you were all in into making that decision. You thought it was getting you to that point, and then you're just like, all right, it didn't work. I learn what you're supposed to learn from it, and then keep it moving. So just tying it into what you were saying about just take a step, because you may not know the whole path.
Yeah. And a cool example of that would be a labyrinth. I love labyrinths.
Oh, yeah.
And my first experience with one was in Atlanta. A friend was like, something about a church in a labyrinth. I was like, oh, what? So he explained it like, this is just things I just wasn't exposed to. And I remember like she was trying to explain it, but I didn't get it. And so I just walked through it. And all she said was walk through it and walk through it slow. I did that and I came out of there a changed person. And I still had the journal that I wrote about that experience. But essentially what I took away from that is, oh my God, I am always moving towards the center. You know, so all the mistakes I thought I made, because when you're walking a labyrinth, you feel like it's sort of like it winds a bit, and it feels like at some point you're walking back out of where you're trying to go, but then you end up at the center if you keep going. And it just hit me. I'm always walking towards the center. That took so much pressure off of my 21-year-old self then, you know, and just being like, I'm exactly where I need to be, because I had thought I made a mistake moving to Atlanta for some spiritual reasons. And I was like, no, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be for whatever reason. I still didn't know why at that time, but I was exactly where I needed to be. And walking a labyrinth is another sort of like mental clarity sort of exercise. And yeah, it was beautiful to know. You just, even if you make a quote mistake, it's not really a mistake, because you're always walking toward the center. Just put one foot in front of the other.
That's so beautiful. Are there any labyrinths? Because we went to a mini labyrinth in Druid Hill, but is there like a big one where...
They have there's a website where you can locate labyrinths. I can't remember the website, but if you Google like find a labyrinth near me, I'm sure it'll come up. But there's another one in Lincoln Park that I like to go to that is larger. I think it's larger than the one we saw.
So it's like a high bush and you walk through.
No, it's not like that. It's still like the one we saw, just the diameter is larger, but that'll be interesting.
Wait, so the one in Atlanta, was it like you couldn't see out? You're just walking?
It was like a church. They rolled out like a paper labyrinth, like a huge print just in the middle of the church cathedral. So that's all I knew. And then I started looking more.
And you have to like do the path.
Yeah, you walk the path. You go in. You're supposed to go in with some kind of intention or question. But again,
And you already had in your mind you wanted the answer to that. Okay.
No, I didn't. I knew
you did
nothing.
not.
I was like, what is a labyrinth? And she said it's some sort of like spiritual practice meditation thing. And I know you're into that quote. And I was just like,
you're like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I went, and it was transformative.
Okay.
I walked it. She just said, just walk it slowly. And they had candles and some chanting going on in the background. And I was like 21.
Right. You know? And it's like a lot of times you're like, this is so hokey. And so, oh, wait, it's working.
It worked. I got what I needed. Like,
Okay.
she was shocked. Like, and she was like,
The one who bought
yeah, and I'm like, oh my God.
Wait, it actually worked?
And it's this and it's that. And she's like, what? Okay.
Right.
But I got what I needed, you know. So yeah, it was great.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just a paper one that they laid out, a huge one, and you walked it. I remember walking it barefoot. And yeah, I got what I needed just from that. But now I am interested in finding ones that are like made from like a natural landscape. And the cool thing with labyrinths is like they're not like mazes, which are meant to have you get lost
and discombobulated with the dead end. So it's not that.
This brings clarity and peace, and that's a good. Yeah, I'm gonna think more about.
Well, I'm gonna look some up because would you go with me? We don't have to do it at the same time.
No,
like maybe,
I
okay.
to. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do it separately, we could. But
no, I mean, I wouldn't want to mess up your. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe you go in 15, and then I go.
Yeah, okay. But go together.
Yeah, go together.
Process separately.
Because I don't know if I don't have anyone that I would think would do that with me.
Yeah.
And I think you would be a good, not accountability, like you better do it right. But I think at the end of it, we could be like, we would actually be able to talk about it and probably process and learn more.
Yeah, let's do it. I love that because I've never done one. I'd be interested in an outdoor one. Like,
so I'll take that homework on.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think when we did it in Druid Hill, I think I get very distracted. I don't know if you could tell that, but I'm very extroverted, paying attention to everything, having to do all the things. So I think I wouldn't be able to do it there if other people were there because I'd just be like, oh, talking. I need to be like intentional and focused with it.
If you look closely at the logo for Nature Heals, it's a labyrinth.
I saw that.
And there's a little seed in the middle. And that's an ode to like we all have what we need inside. We just need the conditions like water, soil, sun. And that could mean like relationships, whatever, you know. So it is a labyrinth.
Yeah. And we are like that. We need at different times, different things. I think in my process now, okay, you want me to look over to the left. So Quanshay had said that when we were talking, I was looking over to the right a lot for my processing my thoughts. And I was like, she said, just look to the other side and see what happens then. But I think in my process now, I'm more likely to need to reflect more. And I think a labyrinth would help with that.
Yeah.
Because if I'm, focused on the path, then it's kind of like, and I'm going in there intentional. I don't know.
You could do that. I could also brain spot with you in a labyrinth. And so like, it is okay to look where your eyes will naturally go. I think you made a comment that I don't remember. I know. I think it was, you were more activated. You were more activated on one side. And then I said, well, what happened if you looked here?
What's the left side? Because if I'm looking right, that means my left brain.
Yeah, it's like the opposite. And so wherever you were looking the first time, it was either more, I think it was more or less activated. I think it was more activated. So I said, well, let's see if we look this way.
Yeah.
And you notice the difference. And so you can process on either one. It really just depends on.
And I do that a lot. Really.
Yeah. You look a lot to your left. For sure.
No, I'm like right, I think.
Really?
I think because I'm intentional. You're
okay. All right.
Because she's with me, I'm just kind of like, all right, bring your eyes together. So definitely, we're going to do the labyrinth. But in the fall, we're definitely doing this walk. Yep. And one of the goals of our podcast is just to talk about nature, introduce it on the podcast and with everyone and the work that you're doing. And in the fall, we're definitely doing a walk. We're thinking about 2.
Yeah.
Just to make it where it's more accessible. The groups are going to be small. But we're going to have more details on that. But what are any of the takeaways that you want people to have?
I would just encourage people to just to start small in terms of finding ways to get a daily dose of nature. You know how there's a daily dose of medicine, get your daily dose of nature. And for some people, that's a daily dose of sun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if you just go outside on your back porch for 5 minutes and just sit there, you know, or if you're an early riser, maybe you want to wake up and watch the sun greet you. I'll do that at times. Or like as a part of winding down for the evening, you give yourself some time to watch the sun rest, and as a signal for you to now prepare your body for rest. And so whatever that might be, it could be watering a plant, daily dose of nature, you know, so it's going to look different for different people, but finding a way that makes sense. So maybe instead of cutting your car AC on, you roll the windows down. You know, so or like and really hot days like today and how it's been for the past few weeks, I will go and retreat to Lincoln Park. The canopy for the summer is like, it's beautiful. It's the leaves are full, so it's black. It's literally shielding you from the sun. And so it is so much cooler when you're there versus if I'm like hanging around in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, retreat to the trees, run for the hills. Like, no.
There's a book that we did at Black Mental Health Alliance called My Mom Hugs Trees.
Oh, really?
And it talks about this little kid observing his mom like outside, hugging the trees, getting connected with nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Well, actually, I have an exercise too that I'll encourage clients when we talk about getting to know nature is I'll have them sit with a tree. So have lunch with a tree. Or just like, I really liked having lunch with it, but you can hug a tree too. When you start to know things intimately, and sometimes I'll bring a magnifying glass when I'm with people on our sessions outdoors, and I'll have them like sort of be kid, like very open and curious, like, oh, you see that? Okay, now here, take this.
Right.
Pay attention to what it looks like from this distance. Now take this magnifying glass, and what do you notice now? And it just opens your world up. So yeah, hug a tree, kiss a tree, fall asleep in a tree. I've done that. I went to school at Morgan, so there's a little like lake area, Lake Montebello.
Mm-hmm.
I would like cut through the woods. Wow, that's full circle too. I would cut through the woods to be at the lake, and there's a tree there that is beautiful. Someone just told me 2 days ago that there's a cherry tree out there, so I need to go and find that too.
At Montebello?
Yeah, Lake Montebello. She just discovered a cherry tree.
Okay.
So she said she'd show me. So I'm planning to go back for that. But yeah, like do what you can. Like right. Another thing fun for kids is like putting a piece of paper like up against the bark of the tree and using a crayon to like.
I remember doing that when I was little.
Yeah, just to get the patterns and all kinds of things. Yeah.
All right. So that is a great takeaway. I am so glad that we were able to meet with Quanshay. You will see her social media. What else? Your Psychology Today link. I'm trying to
right. Yeah, I forgot.
We're going to have that in the show notes. And we hope to see you if you're in Maryland out on the trail with us. And thank you for joining us today for Unfiltered with Roxy, where we have real conversations, go through real change so you can be a better real you. Bye. Have a great rest of your day.